Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Apple Air Guns. Today I'm going to be doing some pellet testing with my 25 caliber Air Venturi Avenger. I'm going to be shooting a plethora of different grain weights and shapes of pellets and slugs from the JTS Dead Center line of pellets. I've got a couple of pellets and I got a slug, so we're going to see how well they do at 50 yards on my paper targets. So my regulator on this gun is set to 2100, and I'm going to have the fill pressure at 4000 for each grouping. I'm going to be doing 2 groupings per grain of pellet, and those are going to be 5-shot groups. Okay, so I'm going to be starting off with the JTS Dead Center 2539 grain pellets. These are standard domes, and I got my target set up down at 50 yards. Okay. So our first grouping was pretty tight grouping. It was a little bit off to the side, so I'm going to adjust my crosshairs real quick. So I got my crosshairs adjusted, so let's move on to that second group. Okay, so overall a very solid group. That last one had just a flyer at that last shot. Went a little bit more to the left and it wasn't as high, but the rest of the shots were very tight with those 29.39s. Now we're going to move on to the 29.32s. So these are a little heavier, carrying a little bit more foot poundage, but we'll see how these group. Alright, so those were a little bit wild, not as tight, and they were definitely a little bit to the left. So I'm going to try to bring those back to the right for our second grouping. Okay, I just got those crosshairs adjusted. Let's see if we can get a nice grouping. Yeah, so definitely a little bit more spread out with that grouping with the 29.32s. Not as tight as the 25 grains, however, still a pretty decent group. Okay, now we're going to move up, very slight jump, to the 29.63s. These are also domed like the first pellet, and I think I forgot to mention that the last pellet was a dome, but it had a flat top to it, almost like a mix between a dome and a wad cut. That might have had something to do with the accuracy problems. So let's see if these 29.63s can do any better. Not a bad grouping down there. Definitely not as tight as the first grouping with those 25 3.9s. However, still a very good grouping, and they're all in that center bowl. Let's try to see if we can get it any tighter with this second group. Okay, so about the same as that first grouping. Still not as good as the first group with the 25 3.9s. However, still, I am not disappointed with those groups down there. And for this big of a range, like usually pellets do not all stack up this well when you're doing pellet testing. Okay, so now I'm going to be moving up to the 33 8.0s. So this is quite a big jump from the last two, gaining almost 4 grains. So we've still got the target down there. Let's see how we do. Not a bad group. Let's move over to the other side. Ooh, that was a bad flyer. That flyer was pretty bad, so I'm going to load up just one more and shoot it and see if I can't get it in that group, because that group is spectacular and that flyer kind of messed that up. So we're going to see if this lands in that group too. Yeah, it did. So that one flyer, that might have been me, but that second group of these 33 8.0s was very good. Maybe better than the 25. So now we're going to move on to the 43.06 grain pellets, but these aren't pellets, these are slugs. They're actually too big. They don't fit in my magazines, so I'm gonna be single loading them in the single shot tray. These are 43 grains, which is almost double of what the first pellet was. So these are very heavy. They're carrying a lot of energy, almost 45 foot-pounds of energy. So let's see how we do down at the target. That first one was definitely me. So I'm gonna put one more on just to see. Okay. So not a bad grouping. Definitely not great, but let's move over to that second grouping. All right. So that was it for all of the testing. Let's go pull that target and see what it looks like. Okay, so I just went down and pulled the target. So as we see, the 25 3.9s did very well with both groups. I had nothing to complain about. I thought they were very good groups. Then moving to the 29 3.2s, they were not as good. Probably our worst grouping, but still not bad. Just a little bit inconsistent. Then going to the 29 6.3s, they were a little bit better. They all stayed on target. It was a pretty solid group, just not super consistent. And then the 33 8.0s, that first group was not great. However, that second group was really good, minus that little one that went up there. Everything else was in that really solid group right there. And then we had a flyer, which I think was me. Maybe not, but... And then moving to the slugs, the last one, which were carrying a ton of energy, which were pretty accurate. The first group that I shot, I was trying to figure out where to hold because they are pretty heavy, they drop a bit. And I'm sighted in for the lightest ones, so there was definitely a bit of a drop. So I wasn't really sure where to hold, so that's where that flyer came from. But then the other 5 landed pretty solidly, had a nice little group there. And then this last one, 2 that weren't great, but the rest of them were pretty close to that bull. So overall, I am very pleased with all of these pellets. I would use any of them for target shooting, plinking, or even hunting. The slugs carry a lot of energy, and for being as heavy as they are very consistent, and I would for sure use them for pretty much anything. Overall, I think the JTS pellets are absolutely amazing, and I think that the overall results of today really show that. If you guys like what you see, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss my next upload. If you're new or old to the channel, please consider subscribing. It'll help out a lot. And as always, we'll see you next time.